Mrs. Estelle Wellington sat like a queen atop her throne, tapping her long, manicured nails against the mahogany table. Her mission? Find the perfect woman for her only son, Theo. One who would not only bring grandchildren into her life, but could also keep up with her dramatic flair. Estelle wasn't just any woman. She was the Estelle Wellington, a woman of high society, high standards, and the master of meddling in other people's business, especially when it came to her son. "Ladies, welcome," she greeted the contestants, her voice echoing dramatically in the grand hall. The group of women who had competed for weeks was now whittled down to just three: Mary, Lisa, and Gabby. The trio stood nervously, like gladiators about to face an unexpected battle. "Mary, Lisa, Gabby," Estelle continued with a sly smile. "The rest of the ladies have been dismissed. Or, should I say, eliminated?" She chuckled, clearly finding her wordplay more amusing than anyone else did. "Everyone else is free to go. Goodbye, losers." Estelle waved dismissively as the others, visibly relieved, rushed out of the mansion like prisoners escaping a dungeon. Meanwhile, the final three eyed each other warily, their minds racing with thoughts of victory. After all, Estelle's son, Theo, was handsome, mysterious, and, most importantly, extremely wealthy. Winning his heart would be the ultimate prize. Or so they thought. Estelle raised a hand to silence their whispering. "Now, ladies, the next step is simple." The room fell silent, tension building as the final instructions came. "I want grandchildren. Whoever gives me one first gets to marry my son." She smiled sweetly, as if she had just suggested a lovely afternoon tea. The women's jaws dropped. Gabby choked on her own spit. "Excuse me, what?" she gasped. Estelle continued without a hint of shame. "You heard me. Grandchildren. I'm tired of waiting. I need heirs, and I need them now. Theo is not getting any younger, and frankly, I'm not getting any more patient. The first one of you to get pregnant by him will win." Mary, ever the optimist, raised her hand. "Well, with such a handsome man, it would be an absolute pleasure." Lisa nodded in agreement, flipping her hair dramatically. "I mean, if it's all about timing, count me in. No one ovulates faster than me," she boasted. Estelle raised an eyebrow, smirking at their eagerness. "Well, that's the spirit, ladies, but let's not get ahead of ourselves." She clapped her hands, and suddenly the doors of the room flew open. Enter Austin, Estelle's bodyguard. Tall, muscular, and ridiculously good-looking, Austin strolled in like a model on a catwalk. His suit clung to him like it had been painted on, and the way his eyes sparkled made the women swoon immediately. "Ah!" Mary whispered to Lisa. "That's him, isn't it? Theo. He's even more perfect in person." Lisa clutched her pearls. "I can't believe I'm about to marry that." But before anyone could fully commit to their fantasies, Estelle broke the spell. "Oh, no, ladies. That's not my son. That's Austin, my bodyguard. Trust me, if I could marry him, I would have done it years ago." Austin gave a curt nod and went back to standing stoically in the corner. The women's faces fell in disappointment, but Estelle wasn't finished with her surprises. "Austin, dear, bring in Theo," Estelle commanded. Austin exited the room and returned moments later, pushing a wheelchair. In it sat Theo, a handsome, if somewhat nervous, man who clearly wasn't used to this kind of attention. His sandy blonde hair was tousled, his blue eyes flickered with unease, and he had the look of a man who had been dragged into something far beyond his control. The wheelchair, while practical, added a new layer of intrigue to the competition. "Hello, ladies," Theo said, his voice soft and filled with uncertainty. Mary blinked, processing the situation. "Wait, is this a joke? Is this the Theo?" Estelle nodded, oblivious to the confusion she had caused. Yes, this is my son Theo, and he's absolutely perfect in every way that matters." Lisa, ever the gold digger, leaned in and whispered to Mary, "Well, as long as he's rich, I don't care about the wheelchair." She smiled sweetly at Theo, But Mary gave her a look that said, seriously? Estelle clapped her hands once again, her smile never faltering. All right, it's time to get the show on the road. Theo, darling, I'll leave you to it. Ladies, one by one, you'll have some private time with Theo. And remember, first one with a baby wins. Theo's face turned a delicate shade of pale as the reality of the situation dawned on him. Wait, what? Mom, I don't think. But Estelle was already marching out of the room, leaving Theo to his fate. Lisa wasted no time. She jumped up, practically sprinting towards Theo's wheelchair. I'll go first, she chirped, tugging on Theo's arm and wheeling him toward the bedroom like she was leading a parade. Once inside, she plopped herself down on the bed and patted the space next to her. So, should we just get to it? Theo, who had never been more uncomfortable in his life, cleared his throat. Maybe we should talk first? You know, about responsibilities? Raising a child isn't exactly like baking cookies. Lisa blinked. Talk? About babies? No thanks. Let's just make one. You're rich. You can hire people to deal with the hard stuff. Theo sighed. Yeah, that's not how this works. After an awkward silence, Lisa finally threw her hands up. All right, fine. If you're going to be boring, I'm out. She stormed out of the room, her mood as deflated as her chances of winning. Next up was Gabby, who entered the room more cautiously. Hi, Theo. So, no pressure, but I made you a little surprise. Theo winced. Please, no more surprises. But before he could stop her, Gabby pulled out a harmonica from her bag and began playing a tune that could only be described as ear-splitting. I learned it just for you, she shouted over the noise. Stop, Theo yelled, covering his ears. Please stop. You're really sweet, but I can't feel anything from the waist down. It's complicated. Gabby blinked in confusion. Wait, then why is your mother making us go through this whole baby-making competition? Because, Theo sighed. She's delusional. She refuses to accept the fact that I can't have children. It's a long story. Gabby stared at him for a moment, then slowly backed out of the room. Okay, I'm just gonna go. Theo nodded. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Finally, it was Mary's turn. She entered the room, her face a mix of determination and hesitation. Look, Theo, she began. I need to be honest. I don't want to do this. Theo's eyebrows shot up. Really? Mary nodded. Yeah, I only entered this competition because, well, I'm at risk of being deported. I need to get married to stay in the country, but I didn't expect things to get this weird. Theo looked at her, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. You know what? I admire that. You're the first one who's been honest with me all day. Mary shrugged. I mean, yeah, getting married would help my situation, but I'm not about to pretend I'm ready to, have a baby just to win. Theo leaned forward in his wheelchair. You know, my mom's always been intense. But the truth is, I can't even have children. She's just been in denial for years. Mary's eyes widened. Wait, so what was this whole competition for? Theo laughed softly. Honestly, I have no idea. But you're the only one who didn't try to lie or trick me. Before they could continue, Estelle burst into the room, clapping her hands once again. Well, who's pregnant? I expect results, ladies. Lisa stepped forward, holding her stomach. It's me. I'm pregnant already. See. She dramatically pushed out her belly. Estelle narrowed her eyes. Really? So soon? I hate liars. Lisa gulped. It's real. I swear. Security. Estelle called. Get her out of here. She's not worthy of my son. Lisa was dragged out of the mansion, kicking and screaming. This isn't over. Estelle turned to Mary, her gaze softening. You, my dear, are the only one who didn't try to deceive us. You're the only one who was honest. Theo rolled forward. Mom, the truth is, I can't give you grandchildren. You've known that for years. Estelle sighed dramatically, pressing the back of her hand to her forehead. Fine, no grandchildren. For now. Theo looked at Mary, a small smile playing on his lips. Mary, I don't know if this will work out, but I promise you, I'll make sure you're not deported. We'll figure something out together. Mary smiled back, relieved. Thank you. That's all I could ever ask for. And with that, the wild, chaotic, and utterly bizarre competition came to a close. Not with a pregnancy, but with honesty, respect, and the hope for something better. Estelle, ever the drama queen, simply sighed. Well, I suppose there's always adoption. As the days passed following the chaotic competition, the Wellington mansion grew quieter. Estelle, though slightly disappointed that no immediate grandchildren were on the horizon, had resigned herself to the fact that her plans had gone slightly awry. However, Estelle Wellington was not a woman who gave up easily. Oh no! If she couldn't have a grandchild the traditional way, she would certainly find another means of stirring up some excitement. Meanwhile, Theo and Mary were getting to know each other outside of the circus Estelle had orchestrated. They began spending time together, laughing over the absurdity of the whole pregnancy competition. Theo admired Mary's honesty and resilience, and Mary appreciated Theo's gentleness and understanding. One afternoon, they were sitting by the garden fountain, sipping tea as the autumn leaves fell around them. You know, Theo said, a smirk on his face, I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that I was the grand prize in a fertility contest. That has to be a new low for reality TV. Mary chuckled, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Honestly, it felt more like a weird game show. I half expected someone to jump out and hand me a fake check for $1 million. Theo shook his head in disbelief. My mom has always been, well, intense when it comes to family matters. This whole grandchild obsession of hers started about 5 years ago when she saw some random ad about baby formula. Ever since, it's been all she talks about. Mary raised an eyebrow. A baby formula ad? That's what did it. Theo sighed, nodding. Yup. She watched it one afternoon, and suddenly she decided it was time to continue the family legacy. Hence the pressure. Mary took a sip of her tea and grinned. Well, I guess we should just be glad she didn't go full bachelor and throw roses at us while we competed for your affection. Theo's eyes widened, as if considering the possibility. Oh, God! Don't give her ideas. She'd turned the mansion into a reality show in a heartbeat. They laughed, but just as the mood lightened, Austin, the ever-stoic bodyguard, approached them. His expression was unreadable, as always, but there was a glint of mischief in his eyes. Miss Mary, Mr. Theo, Austin said in his deep voice. Mrs. Wellington requests your presence in the dining hall. She says it's important. Theo groaned. I'm almost afraid to ask what she's up to this time. Mary shrugged. Could be anything. Let's just hope it doesn't involve more surprised children. They both stood, following Austin through the winding halls of the mansion until they reached the grand dining room. The long, elaborately set table was gleaming with silverware, but it wasn't the food or the fine china that caught their attention. It was Estelle. She sat at the head of the table, dressed in a regal gown, with a look on her face that said she had just concocted another brilliant plan. Behind her, a giant banner hung with bold letters that read, Wellington Family Legacy, the next chapter. Theo and Mary exchanged a look of dread. Mom, Theo said slowly, what is this? Estelle stood, spreading her arms wide like a maestro conducting an orchestra. Darling, Mary, welcome to the future of the Wellington family. Mary glanced at Theo. I have a bad feeling about this. Estelle clapped her hands, and the room suddenly filled with music. Harpsichord music because, of course, Estelle believed in making an entrance. The double doors at the side of the room swung open, and in walked a group of people in historical costumes, each holding various items that looked suspiciously like baby cribs? And was that a painting of a baby on a throne? I present to you, Estelle began dramatically, My latest and greatest idea. If we cannot have an heir the natural way, then we shall adopt, but not just any adoption, no. We will find a child who is worthy of the Wellington legacy, someone with a backstory as grand and illustrious as our family name. Theo blinked. Wait, Mom, you want to adopt an heir? Like this is some kind of royal selection process. Estelle's eyes twinkled with excitement. Exactly. We shall scour the earth for the perfect child, a true prodigy, someone destined for greatness. And once we find this child, we'll raise them as one of our own, molding them into the ultimate Wellington. Mary's jaw dropped. I'm sorry, what? You can't just shop around for a kid like you're picking out a puppy. Estelle waved off Mary's concern. Oh, darling, you underestimate the process. I've already put out feelers with several elite adoption agencies. We're looking for a child with exceptional skills, perhaps a future concert pianist or a young inventor. The possibilities are endless. Theo, completely stunned, stared at his mother. This is too much, even for you. You're turning this into a game show again. Estelle looked insulted. Nonsense. It's not a game. It's an opportunity. An opportunity for us to secure the Wellington legacy for generations to come. Imagine, darling, a child with the brains of Einstein and the charm of, well, me. Before Theo could protest further, Austin cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. Mrs. Wellington, he said, his voice calm, I think there might be some legal issues with adopting a child under those circumstances. We can't exactly audition them like it's a talent show. Estelle waved him off. Details. I'm sure we can work something out. Mary, who had been trying to process the absurdity of the situation, finally spoke up. Okay, let's back up for a second. You really think you can just find a child, raise them to be the perfect heir, and hand over the family fortune once they've passed some sort of test? Estelle smiled serenely. Exactly. Think of it like an investment. We'll groom them, shape their future, and they'll become the pride of the Wellington name. Theo buried his face in his hands. Mom, this is insane. You can't just manufacture a legacy like it's a brand of cereal. Estelle looked insulted. Nonsense. It's not a game. It's an opportunity. An opportunity for us to secure the Wellington legacy for generations to come. Imagine, darling, a child with the brains of Einstein and the charm of, well, me. Before Theo could protest further, Austin cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. Mrs. Wellington, he said, his voice calm, I think there might be some legal issues with adopting a child under those circumstances. We can't exactly audition them like it's a talent show. Estelle waved him off. Details. I'm sure we can work something out. Mary, who had been trying to process the absurdity of the situation, finally spoke up. Okay, let's back up for a second. You really think you can just find a child, raise them to be the perfect heir, and hand over the family fortune once they've passed some sort of test? Estelle smiled serenely. Exactly. Think of it like an investment. We'll groom them, shape their future, and they'll become the pride of the Wellington name. Theo buried his face in his hands. Mom, this is insane. You can't just manufacture a legacy like it's a brand of cereal. Estelle clapped her hands again, signaling for the musicians to stop. I'm only doing what's best for the family, Theo. I want a bright future for us, and if that means being a little creative, then so be it. Theo stood, his face set in determination. You know what, Mom? I think I've had enough of this creative approach. You can't force life to follow a script. Maybe we don't need a perfectly groomed heir to carry on the family name. Maybe, just maybe, it's okay to let things happen naturally. Estelle's eyes widened. But the legacy, Theo. Theo softened, stepping forward. Mom, a family legacy isn't about how much money we have or whether we find a child prodigy to carry on our name. It's about love, relationships, and the memories we make. You're so focused on the future that you're missing what's happening now. Estelle stared at her son. Her lips pursed as if she were about to argue, but then her shoulders slumped ever so slightly. I just wanted to make sure everything would be perfect. Mary stepped forward, smiling gently. Perfection's overrated. It's the messy, unexpected moments that make life interesting. Besides, Theo and I are figuring things out. Isn't that enough? Estelle hesitated for a moment before sighing dramatically. Fine. I suppose I've been overly enthusiastic in my quest for grandchildren. Theo and Mary exchanged a look, relieved but cautious. Knowing Estelle, she wasn't quite done scheming. Suddenly, Estelle's face brightened again. But I'm still going to find the perfect family dog, one with impeccable lineage and the intelligence of a PhD graduate. Perhaps a poodle. Theo groaned, and Mary burst into laughter. As for Estelle, she had already begun making plans for the Canine Legacy competition, because if she couldn't have grandchildren just yet, then by golly, she was going to have the smartest, most regal dog in the neighborhood. And with that, the Wellington family continued their chaotic journey, full of laughter, love, and the never-ending spectacle of Estelle's grand plans. Despite Estelle's declaration to focus on finding the perfect poodle, the Wellington mansion didn't stay quiet for long. Estelle had always been a woman of action, and within a week she had contacted the top breeders across the country, determined to find a canine companion worthy of the Wellington name. Meanwhile, Theo and Mary found themselves growing closer. Their shared sense of humor and mutual disbelief at Estelle's antics made for an unexpected bond. They had gone from complete strangers thrust into a bizarre situation to two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. One crisp autumn morning, as Mary sat by the large bay window in the mansion's library, she overheard Estelle's unmistakably animated voice coming from the hallway. "Oh, darling, you have to see this one. She's perfect." Estelle's voice echoed through the mansion, growing louder as she approached the library. Mary braced herself. She had a sinking feeling that perfect referred to a dog, not a potential daughter-in-law. Theo appeared a moment later, looking both amused and exasperated. "Brace yourself. She's found it." Mary blinked. "Found what?" Theo gestured vaguely toward the hallway. "The dog. The perfect dog she's been obsessing over for the last week." Just as Mary was about to respond, Estelle burst into the room, dramatically holding up a photo as if she were revealing a precious artifact. Behind her, Austin trailed quietly, carrying what appeared to be several folders full of pedigrees. "Behold," Estelle declared, her voice filled with triumph. "This, my dear children, is our new family member." Mary looked at the photo. It was a poodle, a very fluffy, very white, very fancy poodle. The kind that looked like it belonged in a luxury penthouse, wearing tiny sunglasses and a designer collar. Theo raised an eyebrow. "Mom, is this a dog?" Estelle sighed, as though Theo's question was beneath her. "Of course, it's a dog, Theo, but not just any dog. This is Genevieve DuPont, third generation from a line of award-winning poodles. She has been meticulously trained and possesses an IQ comparable to that of a small child. I've already arranged for her to be flown in from France." Mary couldn't help but laugh. "Genevieve Dupont? That's the most pretentious dog name I've ever heard." Estelle beamed, clearly missing the sarcasm. "Isn't it marvelous? She'll be a perfect fit for our family." Theo pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to hold back a laugh. "Mom, we don't need an aristocratic dog. We need—" But Estelle wasn't listening. She had already turned to Austin, snapping her fingers. "Austin, make sure the dog suite is ready for her arrival. I expect everything to be immaculate. Genevieve deserves nothing but the best." Austin, as always, nodded without a word and left the room to carry out Estelle's orders. Mary turned to Theo, incredulous. Did she just say dog suite? This mansion is starting to feel like a luxury hotel for pets. Theo shook his head in disbelief. Welcome to my life. Next, she'll probably start arranging tea parties for the dog. Estelle clapped her hands in excitement. Oh, that's a brilliant idea. A welcome tea party for Genevieve. I'll invite all the neighbors. We can even have little biscuits shaped like bones. Mary covered her face with her hands. I was joking, but it was too late. Estelle was already rushing out of the library, talking a mile a minute about invitations, caterers, and how Genevieve would wear a custom-made silk bow for the occasion. Theo and Mary exchanged a long-suffering glance. Well, Theo said with a sigh, at least it's just a dog this time. The tea party of chaos. 2 days later, the Wellington mansion was abuzz with preparations for the Genevieve DuPont welcome tea party. Estelle had gone all out, hiring a professional event planner, importing gourmet dog treats, and even having tiny dog-sized furniture brought in for Genevieve's grand debut. Mary found herself helping the staff hang up banners and arrange delicate porcelain cups on long tables in the garden. As absurd as it all was, she couldn't deny that it was kind of fun in a ridiculous, over-the-top way. What do you think the dog will make of all this? Mary asked as she and Theo stacked plates of finger sandwiches. Theo laughed. Honestly, Genevieve's probably going to hate it. She'll probably spend most of the time hiding under one of the chairs. Mary smirked. Well, let's hope she doesn't end up in your mother's lap during the big toast. As the guests arrived, mostly the well-to-do neighbors and their equally pampered dogs, the atmosphere took on the air of a high society gala. There were sparkling drinks, classical music playing softly in the background, and of course, Estelle in the center of it all, wearing a ridiculously large hat and fussing over Genevieve like she was royalty. Genevieve, for her part, was the picture of canine elegance, sitting daintily in her custom-made chair with a silk bow around her neck. She looked thoroughly unimpressed with everything, though she tolerated Estelle's fussing with a level of patience that was almost admirable. Theo leaned over to Mary, whispering, $5 says Genevieve escapes within the hour. Mary chuckled. You're on. The tea party proceeded without incident for the first 30 minutes. Guests mingled. Dogs sniffed each other, and Estelle gave a long, overly dramatic toast about the importance of family, tradition, and now, apparently, dogs. Just when it seemed like the event might actually go off without a hitch, chaos struck. One of the neighbors, an older gentleman named Mr. Percy, had brought his own dog to the party, a particularly energetic and mischievous Jack Russell Terrier named Rufus. Rufus had been behaving himself up until that point, but suddenly, as if sensing an opportunity for mischief, he darted across the garden, making a beeline for Genevieve's elegant chair. Before anyone could react, Rufus jumped up onto Genevieve's lap, startling the prim and proper poodle. Genevieve let out a surprised yelp and bolted from her chair, knocking over a table as she fled. Pandemonium ensued. Rufus, clearly thinking this was a fantastic game, chased after Genevieve, barking excitedly. Other dogs, sensing the commotion, joined in, and soon the entire tea party was a blur of barking, running dogs, and knocked over furniture. Estelle stood in the middle of the chaos, her hat askew and her face a mix of horror and disbelief. Genevieve, my precious Genevieve. Mary and Theo could barely contain their laughter as they watched the scene unfold. I think you owe me $5, Mary said between giggles. Theo grinned. Worth every penny. Genevieve, meanwhile, had found refuge under one of the garden benches, glaring at Rufus as if plotting her revenge. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Austin managed to restore order, rounding up the dogs and escorting them back to their respective owners. Genevieve was coaxed out from under the bench and returned to Estelle's arms, where she was promptly pampered and reassured that she was still the queen of the Wellington household. Estelle, still looking flustered, turned to her guests with a forced smile. Well, I think that concludes our tea party. Thank you all for coming. Please, feel free to take your dogs and go. As the guests left, some hiding smiles and others clearly relieved, Theo and Mary exchanged a look. You know, Mary said, I think that went better than expected. Theo laughed. Only in this house could a dog tea party turn into a full-blown chase scene. They both turned to see Estelle, now holding Genevieve like a baby, still muttering about how Rufus had traumatized her precious poodle. "Well," Mary said with a grin, "what's next on the Wellington family agenda? A cat adoption contest? Maybe a lizard with royal lineage?" Theo shook his head, smiling. "At this point, nothing would surprise me." And so, the Wellington mansion returned to its usual state of chaos, with Estelle still dreaming of a perfect legacy, Theo and Mary navigating the absurdity of it all, and Genevieve, the new family dog, plotting her next move from the comfort of her plush velvet bed.